have the opportunity of sitting here and having a conversation with you. I know there are a whole lot of you out there who are with us. I feel delighted, I feel glad, because once again, you and I will be having the benefit of learning, especially within this period that we have an enemy, an unseen enemy, waging serious war against us. In the words of the Honorable Speaker, House of Representative, Honorable Femi Bajemi Amila, he said, if we have to fight this, we must fight it at all costs. And then that's what we are speaking about. But then to be able to fight and win, we need to understand the enemy. As much as we're not seeing it, some people have special eyes. I call them the doctors. They get to see how this thing works. And I keep hearing, a lot of times underlining ailments, talking about what happens inside of our bodies. How does this virus interact within the body? We have an internist here with me. Later on, we'll be having an ENT doctor joining us to talk about how it functions through nasal, mouth, all the cavities. I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I am Elizabeth Awai. The program is Conversation. Dr. Felicia, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I introduced you as an internist, but I also know they call people like you endocrinologists. I sometimes mistaken it for endocrinologists.
Thank you. I'm a professor of endocrinology and diabetology.
Diabetology.
Yeah.
I'm learning this for the first time. And I have known you for a long time, and each time I have a conversation with you, it's always a learning process for me. All right, we will continue with our program, but for now, let's take a break. Let's get to understand a little bit of the...
The coronavirus, also known as Covid-19, is spreading at an alarming rate all over the globe, including Nigeria. With the number of infected persons in Nigeria increasing daily, prevention is better than cure. Coronavirus has no cure. The virus spreads from one person, who affects two persons, and by the time the affected person is isolated, the two persons have affected four, and it keeps spreading. You must take preventive measures to save yourself and that of the people around you. Always wash your hands with soap and water. Put distance between yourself and others. Whenever you cough or sneeze, cover your mouth. Clean and disinfect surfaces. Stay at home if you're sick and contact the proper authorities. Together, we can cut down the spread of the coronavirus. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest TV network.
The show is Conversation, and as you can see, I have the iPad with me, meaning that we are with you live today, and we'll be expecting you to send in your questions as the show goes on. But please, I want to start by asking you, don't send me account number, because that's wasting your airtime. I will not do anything. All right, talking about coronavirus, I have always heard, somebody asked me last week again, what is the difference between a virus and a bacterial?
Okay, well, they are all infective materials or agents. They cause infection. Bacterial is bigger.
Bacterial is bigger
than a virus. And then when you talk about genetic material, bacterial is complete, but virus is not. Virus will have to interact with our own material to.
When you say material,
genetic material. So to
okay,
say,
so it's not like fabric we're wearing.
In simple terms,
okay,
they will have to interact, with our own to become infective. To the capacity to multiply on their own outside, they don't have it. But when they get into us, then they can.
So both of them need our own.
No. Bacteria can, cause infection directly because it's bigger in size.
Okay. But the other one needs to interact
to
be able to get that done. And that's the one we are battling with, that's the coronavirus. It's really raging. A whole lot of things I want to ask, but let me start asking. A lot of times I hear about underlining ailments. Underlining ailments. Can you give me a little bit of clarity on that.
Okay. When you talk about underlying ailments, what they are referring to are, chronic diseases that are already existing in the individual, or non-communicable diseases that the individuals already have. When we talk about diseases, we divide them into two classes: infectious diseases and non-infectious diseases. The non-infectious diseases are the non-communicable diseases, or some of them lifestyle diseases. So that's the difference. So the non-communicable diseases, or what they are referring to as the underlying diseases, are chronic diseases like diabetes, like hypertension, like heart disease, like asthma, like cancer, and so on.
Somebody said since it goes through the three places, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth into your body. So automatically, if you have a problem with your eye, like you're myopic, you have glaucoma, you already have an underlying ailment. Is that also part of it?
No. The underlying ailments are predominantly these non-communicable diseases that we are talking about, including sickle cell diseases.
Including sickle cell. Now, why do we need to, what does it do for someone, for instance, with hypertension?
Okay, we have to take it one by one.
Thank you.
Hypertension. There are certain genetic predisposition that may be in the individual to make this virus, more aggressive. And then, secondly, hypertension can affect the heart. So somebody can get heart disease, heart failure, for example, or even enlargement of the heart from long-standing hypertension that has not been controlled, for a long time. And so that makes the heart, that predisposes the heart, to any other thing now coming to challenge the heart. Now, also, science so far, what they have said is that even some of the medications we use for hypertension can also actually predispose that individual to make the virus multiply more and cause more problem. That is hypertension. Now, for diabetes, for example, diabetes affects the immune system. All right? So, when, for various reasons, it affects the immune system, and when any stranger comes into our bodies, whether it is bacteria or virus, whatever it is, the body recognizes it as strange. And what the body will do is like, war coming. So the body will mount, antibodies, what we call soldiers from the immune system of the body to fight that stranger and get rid of it. In the normal person, that is what will happen. But when you have a situation, an underlying disease that has affected the immune system already, the capacity of the immune system to bring up these soldiers to help us, when you have that situation, then it means that this stranger will be quite overwhelming now, has all the chance to multiply and cause all the destruction. And of course, for diabetes again, the infection will also worsen diabetes control in these people. So that is why their outcome, may be worse than another person who does not have diabetes. The same thing with people who have cancers. Cancer overwhelms the body. The treatment of cancer can also overwhelm the immune system. So when this stranger comes now, there's nothing to turn the stranger back. Sickle cell disease, the same thing. The way God has made the body, God is the perfect scientist. So everything works together to make this individual healthy. So sickle cell disease, if they have, sometimes when they have crisis, they can have crisis in the chest. We call it acute chest syndrome. That already, is a big problem for the chest, for the lungs. This person is struggling to take air in to, get enough oxygen. So if we know that this virus predominantly affects the lungs. So if you have that in addition, then you know that there is a big problem.
Now, you took your time really, and I was getting to enjoy it more and more. And I like what you said about God being a perfect scientist. He doesn't make mistakes. Now, are there drugs that could, affect or predispose one, maybe hypertensive drugs, or I don't know, that can predispose one to, let me say, being a customer to COVID-19?
Well, this virus is a new disease. Yes, science is working very hard, but we don't have the final statements yet. It's still too early to have final statements as regards these drugs. Even those drugs for hypertension that they have identified could actually make this virus to, proliferate more and cause more severe disease. The Association of Cardiologists all over, the European Association, the American, the British, they have said that they haven't had enough evidence yet to say, stop giving patients these antihypertensives. We should continue for now until there's more work done and we have more evidence. So we can't make a final statement on that right now. It's still too early.
Little wonder it's called the novel, disease.
Because it's new.
Because it's new, and a lot of things is presenting.
It's still cloudy, not very clear yet.
Okay. Now, I still want to go back to the internal organ. If I contract it, and I'm not talking about Elizabeth. If I contract this and possibly I have, HIV/AIDS, do I need to stop taking my drugs for HIV?
No, you don't need to, because actually one of the drugs we are using to treat even the people with, COVID-19 infection is, an antiviral, just like, the drugs that are used for HIV. You won't stop the drugs, but of course, it will make the person more vulnerable, make the person more sick, because the disease will be more severe. Since, we know that HIV virus affects the immune system a lot. So with that state, the person is not able to mount up enough immune response to take care of this virus. So that individual will actually be more ill and we need more attention.
Like I said earlier, you are an internist, so you understand how the internal organs, interact. Now, I have been told by a lot of people that steaming and hot fluid and all that, actually it's preventive. I need you to speak on this.
Well,
quite seriously, I need you to speak on this.
When you talk about science purely, science will want you to do what we call a randomized control trial, where one group is using whatever it is and another group is not using it, and then there are parameters set to assess the outcome. And then you can, if there's a significant difference now in survival, in cure, then you can make a categorical statement scientifically that, I have found that this thing works, and this is the evidence that shows that it works. Well, there has been a lot about, steam inhalation. But, even when children, for example, have upper respiratory infection and they get to the hospital, the doctors will naturally advise, steam inhalation. But the truth is what steam does, or heat, when you inhale heat, what it does is to dilate the blood vessels, make the blood vessels more open. But blood supply is better, drainage is better, so that individual feels better. Even adults, when they have catarrh, they are told, okay, do steam inhalation. So there is some sense in it anyway, that because it dilates the blood vessels and drainage is better, that individual, the blockage now is opened up, so the individual feels better.
But if I finish doing the steam inhalation and go back and drink cold water, have I done anything?
Well, you shouldn't drink cold water immediately you finish, because it will constrict the vessels back immediately. You see, cold constricts the blood vessel. Okay. Heat will open it up.
All right, that's more like something I also heard about baby aspirin. Does it, I don't know, I'm not a doctor, baby aspirin, does it also do the same thing?
That's not exactly. There are, when we have an injury in our hands, we bleed. And then after a while it stops. Something makes it stop. We call it clotting, the clotting process in the body. So there's a component of the blood we call platelets. That is part of what makes the blood to clot and we stop to bleed. Now, when people have chronic conditions like diabetes, like hypertension, there is sheer stress. So it causes some damages in the blood vessels. So they look like injuries. And since they look like injuries, platelets, we recognize it as a place of injury, a site of injury, and we'll gather there to block it. All right? So this causes reduced blood flow to, the various parts of the body, especially the brain, the heart, and the legs in those who have diabetes. So that aspirin has anti-platelet activity, so it disperses the platelets so that blood, so it's not the same thing we are talking
All right, we have more questions coming in, but I'll take them after I'm done with my own questions. I've also heard that since alcohol is the base for the hand sanitizers, so if I'm not privileged to have hot water close by and I have one of those, sapele water, beteshi, all those stuff, they call it monkey tail, it can actually help me, ward off or prevent, so to speak.
No,
How does that work?
No, please. We don't encourage inhalation of alcohol because that can cause a lot of problem. That can even affect the brain a lot, The person can even go unconscious in the process of sitting and inhaling, alcohol. So we don't encourage that at all. So I'm not going to even talk about how it works. We don't advise anybody to begin to inhale alcohol.
Or even to consume via mouth?
Or even to consume. I mean, alcohol has all manner of devastating effects on virtually every organ of the body. So, if you have something that, can destroy virtually every organ of the body, what sense does it make?
To take it. All right, I'll quickly visit my questions here. Let me take the first one. It says, can an individual get cured completely from diabetes? I think because you mentioned you're also diabetes experts.
Okay, well, we don't cure diabetes. I'm going to, assuming I was writing it now, I'll put it in capital letters, or I'll put it in bold. We don't cure diabetes. What we do is to control diabetes so that individual can live his normal life. But we don't cure diabetes.
Wow. So it's management, so to speak.
Yes.
And maybe you need to stress a little bit more on the management technique so that they understand.
Well, first of all, I mean, when we talk about diabetes, we simply mean a situation where the body finds it difficult to utilize glucose or everything the person takes. Because usually, I said earlier, God is the perfect scientist. There are so many things He has put together to make us, function. There's an organ in our abdomen we call the pancreas. It is there that this chemical, we have a famous chemical called insulin. This chemical is the one that helps us to utilize everything we eat as a source of energy and nutrition. So for all manner of reasons, the level of that chemical may not be sufficient. And if that's the case, then everything we eat builds up in the blood and then diabetes shows up. Now, we can manage diabetes, with medications, with even lifestyle modification, looking at, I usually say that people can live to be alive. And they can live to be alive. They can live also not to be alive by the way they live, by the choices they make. All right? So we can make choices so we can live. We can also decide to make choices that will make us not to live. So one of the ways we treat diabetes is lifestyle measures, the issue of diet, looking at what your food is like. Because it makes sense that if you, the chemical that is to help you utilize everything you eat as a source of energy and nutrition, if you don't have enough, it makes sense that you also take a look at your food, at what you take and all that. So the issue of food is one, modifying what the person takes. And then, of course, the next one is physical activity, because when we move around, again, the way God has made us is such that we should burn whatever calorie we take in each day so we can maintain metabolic balance and prevent disease. But when we take so much calorie in and we don't do any physical activity to burn it out, then it settles, the imbalance, there's an imbalance now.
Yes.
So that imbalance settles as fat. And then we know that excess weight is a risk factor for diabetes. So one of the ways we also manage it is when we increase our physical activity and all that, then we're able to burn calories, and then we're able to, because when we exercise, the muscles are active.
Yes.
The muscles, interestingly, need glucose to burn as a source of energy for that activity, so your blood glucose drops. That is why exercise is also one of the ways we manage diabetes. So there are those that with lifestyle changes, the diabetes is fine. I mean, control is fine and they don't even need drugs. But there are those that, despite the lifestyle changes, we need to give them medication, or even some, we need to give them the insulin itself that is not there, because it's so important that we must have good control. That's the only way we can prevent all the chronic complications of diabetes.
All right, I'm tempted to ask more questions, but I'm trying to ensure that we get along with our audience, because a lot of messages are coming in. Somebody says here, good morning to you. I want to ask someone who is asthmatic, what is his fate of such a person? I believe they are mostly sometimes mistaken for COVID-19. There's a clear difference between COVID-19 and asthmatic attack?
Well, yes, those who have mild, moderate asthmatic attacks, they may not, have problems as such. But when people come in with severe asthmatic attacks, COVID-19 affects the lungs predominantly. And both of them will present, particularly the severe one, with difficulty in breathing. So when they present themselves in the hospital, certain investigations will have to be done. Of course, history, examination, investigations like chest X-ray to differentiate the findings. There are specific findings of acute, asthmatic attack on the chest X-ray. There are also findings of COVID-19 on chest X-ray. So that will differentiate, But also is important to also know that with asthmatic attack and COVID-19 all happening in the same organ, the lungs, the disease may be more severe in those who have asthma.
So if you have asthma, it's important
that you prevent, may take all the precautions to avoid having COVID-19 in the first instance, because it is your lungs that the thing is still going to affect.
Definitely. Now, somebody else listened to you at the beginning. Says, good morning, doctor. Please, would you kindly elaborate more on the bacterial, please? Are all bacterials harmful? He says his name is Jamil Sani from Kano.
Well, all bacteria are not harmful, because there's what we call normal commensals in the body. We have normal bacteria on the skin, for example, in our intestines, that help us. So not all are harmful, but the harmful ones really can cause problem.
Okay, so can hypertension be cured completely? The person didn't write his name.
It's the same thing as diabetes. We don't cure hypertension, but we control hypertension so that person can live his normal life, provided the person is keeping an eye on the blood pressure, doing all the clinic visits as when due, and also taking his or her medications properly.
All right, we will still be taking more of the question, but I need to know, you mentioned something about management, and especially for the asthma, or in fact everybody, prevention. And earlier on behind camera we had a conversation around the mask, and I want to bring it to fore now. You talked about the differences in masks. We've been all told, any mask is better than no mask. So, and a lot of fashion is going on. Some are using Ankara, some are using bed sheets. I've seen leather, I've seen all manner of masks. Could you enlighten us on,
I saw someone this morning as I was coming here. The mask she was wearing is the same with the gown she was wearing.
It's
so
very
people
nice.
and Nigerians are very fashionable. Even in a situation like this, we are still trying to bring in fashion into it. So I smiled when I saw the lady. Yes, it's very important to wear mask. It's one of the precautions that we have to take against COVID-19. But it's also important for people to understand, why am I using mask in the first instance? how am I supposed to use the mask? All right, and then what type of mask am I supposed to use is very, very important. Now, what I see around, is particularly these homemade ones, the homemade masks, the homemade ones. You see a very narrow rectangular cut, very narrow, and you see people put it on, and it's hardly covering the nose. It's just at the level of the nostrils, hardly covering the nose, and then also hardly going beyond the chin. And some are even narrow on the, on this side, so they are not really covering. The ideal mask actually should have pleatings. This is not enough though, but this has some, but it's not enough. If you look at this surgical mask, I think I have a surgical mask.
You can from your bag, yeah, why not? This is mine actually.
Okay.
So, but I try to make effort to put the pleatings on it.
Yes, I have a surgical mask.
Okay.
Here. So if you look at the surgical mask, you see the pleatings. Okay, this is to enable you open it up.
Okay.
So when you open it up and you fix it, this goes, almost below your eyes, and it is also able to go almost close to your neck. And then there is space for me to breathe. Now what I see is that the mask can be so small that even those who want to try to let it cover the nose, it is compressing the nasal bridge, so they will find it difficult to breathe. So you'll find them taking it off their nose, intermittently. Then also, so those who are sewing, please, it is important that they know that there's a reason for these plates. It is not fashion. It's not just there for being their sake. It is to give room so you can open it up. Now, those wearing it should also know how to wear it. That just like I have demonstrated, it should go above, almost close to your eyes, and then go, beyond your chin, almost close to the neck. Okay, so people who are using it as fashion, I don't know what it is, they put it, just hang it on the neck. It doesn't make sense.
And then when they want to talk, especially. And
when they want to talk, they remove it. Or those, they just cover the mouth. Like you said, when they want to talk, they remove. So it is so important that it covers, from up here and up to, just by the neck. That's the way to wear the mask, and that's the way a proper mask should be sewn.
There's a bit of iron, on top.
Yes,
that you
it is so
what does
that
it serve?
It is so that you can fix it properly, and it's holding there. No space is expected to be there, because things can still go in through if there is space. So it is to make sure that there's no space there. So you can see, it's not just carrying cloth and putting. There are technicalities to it, and there are reasons for whatever you do with the mask.
All right, but Doc, you didn't comment my own. I tried.
Your own, well, it appears it's better than the ones I see, but I think you should still make it a bit broader.
Thank you. Just give me back my mask.
And let the pleatings be a bit more.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I tried. All right, so I'll take more messages from here. It says, this case is getting serious. Have a cure been found yet? And when will it be found? Of course, he's talking about the coronavirus. And I think there's nothing yet.
There's a drug that they are trying in the US right now. So we are waiting to, hear what the final. They found some benefit in a few patients, but before you make a final statement, you must have done quite, scientifically speaking, you must have given it to a larger number of patients, and you must have seen a significant positive outcome before you now can make a public statement concerning it. But they are trying a particular drug in the US right now.
The next write-in is pretty much the same thing. He's asking a way out for this virus. There is no way out yet, except that
prevention is the way out. It's so important. Prevention is the way. I'm saying that the lockdown has been lifted. So what is happening now is that our safety have been put in our hands. that we are responsible for our own safety right now. So every individual is to take all the measures seriously. So I don't see much of social distancing or physical distancing. Many Nigerians are still carrying on like there is nothing happening. In fact, I'm told that there are Nigerians up to this moment who don't believe that there is anything.
Doc, it's not a question of being told. I had a conversation yesterday morning with a lady who told me that this is not happening.
There is nothing like that.
Yes.
So Nigerians are carrying on like there is nothing. I mean, I see Keke Napep carrying five people still. What people should know is that if one individual in that Keke Napep has it, he'll give it to everybody. If a taxi is carrying 6 people, 4 people, if one person has it, he will give everybody. So people have to be careful. Go out only when it is necessary. If it is not necessary, remain in your home. And then the social distancing, try to do it. I mean, when on Monday, if you see the number of people in the banks on Monday, no idea of social distancing at all. Do Nigerians know that we have a problem at all? So social or physical distancing, we should take it seriously. And then the issue of washing hands, as many times, it cannot be too much. As many times as you have an opportunity with soap and water to wash hand, you wash. If you have the sanitizer, somebody says sanitizer is expensive, so the poor people cannot have sanitizer. Okay, at least they can have soap, the cheapest soap they can get, and water. But somebody also says, supposing there is no flowing water. So these are all challenges, but our health or our safety, government has put it in our own hands now. We are the ones to decide that we want to keep safe or we don't want to keep safe.
All right. Now, if I have a face mask and I wash my hands regularly, can I still hug a friend I just met?
No. This thing survives in fomites and, in cloths and all that. So I think we should still keep that hugging aside for now.
All right. Okay, good morning, presenter and the guest. Please, does the loss of smell make one vulnerable to COVID-19? Maybe nasal congestion or any problem? I am Mohammed.
Well, there's somebody who is coming to talk about the issue of the
yes, Dr. Titus will be joining us.
But there are people who have some genetic defects and they don't smell things. There are people like that. Normally, they don't smell things. But what we are saying about COVID-19 is that when it has entered the individual and has started causing problems, then the person suddenly notices that he or she has lost the sense of smell. So if it's a new thing in the person, then there is a problem the person should report.
Okay. If even if you're not having fever, if you notice you have loss of smell,
even if there is, it's coming in new.
Okay.
It's not that this person has always had it.
Okay.
Like I told you, there are conditions where individuals don't smell things. They are there. But if somebody who used to smell everything now notices suddenly that he has stopped smelling things, even without fever or any other symptom, the person at least should report so that he or she can be checked. And then it's better usually that you raise an alarm and they tell you, oh, no cause for alarm, than that there is trouble and you are not raising an alarm.
All right. Somebody is asking again, what is the effect of salt on hypertension? And I think salt generally is not good.
Well, not that salt generally is not good. It is too much of it. We all need salt. We all need salt to some extent. But in hypertension, because too much salt can increase blood pressure, we tell people who have hypertension, step down on the amount of salt that you take. And also, as people age, there are changes in our bodies that, tend to promote disease as we age. For example, as we age, blood sugar tends to rise. As we age, blood pressure tends to rise. As we age, cells tend to misbehave, go out of control, then the issue of cancer comes. But so we tell people that as you age, even if you are not hypertensive, step down on the amount of salt you take. Step down on the amount of oil you take. Step down on the amount of sugar you take so that you can avoid disease.
So once one is getting older. Now, when you say as you age, I know a child born today, tomorrow is aging. So at what age do we begin to worry?
Well, the truth is this, really. If we want to remain healthy through our lifetime, The earlier we start the changes, the better. For example, if somebody has a family, if a parent has diabetes, for example, I usually tell the patients that they have a responsibility towards their children to make sure that their children don't get diabetes. So, as early as possible, the children of such a parent should be taught how to eat right. Healthful eating. For example, you shouldn't, train that child so much to love ice creams, chocolates, and all that. You'll get it, because if one parent has diabetes, any of the children has a 40% chance at one stage or the other in his or her lifetime. So I usually tell people that 60% left, hold it hard and make use of it and prevent having it. And these changes can never be too early.
Okay, noted. All right. It's still conversations. We're talking health, we're talking COVID-19, and a lot of people are asking for other health questions. Good enough. She's an internist. She will do justice to all your questions. But do you know that as much as the lockdown has been lifted up, it's actually easing. There are rules and regulations. We'll take a break and get you acquainted with some of the rules and regulations. When we come back, we continue our chat.
The following guidelines for eased lockdown, as announced by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, are effective from 4th May 2020 in Abuja, Lagos, and Ogun states. For public spaces, the following are mandatory: improvised face masks, temperature checks, hand washing facilities and hand sanitizers, physical distance of at least 2 meters, no sporting activities and mass gathering. On travel, these are prohibited: passenger flights, interstate travel except essential services, movement of agro products and petroleum products. Note, there will be mandatory supervised isolation of returnees for at least 14 days. For markets and offices, neighborhood markets are to open 3 times a week from the hours of 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Banks and financial services are to open from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Government offices are open only to staff from grade level 14 to 17 between the hours of 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. daily. Corporate offices and private sector are open to business from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Schools, churches, mosques, clubs, bars and gardens remain closed till further notice. COVID-19 is real. Take responsibility and stay safe.
We're done. All right, it's still conversations, and when we started, I told you the next person who is a specialist, a professor in ears, nose, and teeth, medicine, will be joining us, and he's right here seated with us. Welcome, Dr. Titus Sickle.
Thank you, Lizzie.
And I want to go straight by asking you the question some people have been asking, and I think is your field. Professor Felicia already passed it on for you. Says, good morning, presenter and guests. Please, does the loss of smell make one vulnerable? She tried to explain a bit, but he says it's more of your game as well.
Yeah, loss of smell and taste, or both. Recently, they've been confirmed to be one of those early symptoms or red flags for COVID-19. It took a while investigation was going on, that the body of ENT surgeons across the globe were collecting data to that effect. But on 21st of April, CDC passed it as one of the certified symptoms. And 2 days later, our own NCDC did the same here. So the beautiful thing here is that even those who are asymptomatic, that is those individuals who will be presenting with this disease but not showing any symptom, a lot of them will still have this early warning sign of loss of smell or loss of taste. And it's something that individuals can, on their own, be able to screen. So it's a self-screening tool, as it is right now, because you suddenly wake up in the morning and you can't perceive smell around you. Those food that you enjoy eating, you taste, you can't feel the taste. That is very, very likely an early symptom. And it's not far from fetch how this happens. We know that the nose and the throat are one of the first point of entries of the organism, the coronavirus 2 organism. So when they get to the nose, inside the nose there, the upper respiratory tract, you have the receptors where they easily adapt and sit on first. We call it the ACE2, angiotensin converting enzyme 2. So once it gets attached there with its S protein, and the surface enzyme, the transaminases, break this down, they start multiplying in hundreds and thousands, in millions in the nose. So that's the first place they populate. And there is a part of the nose, the skin in the nose, called the olfactory epithelium. So within there is where you have those sensory elements that will have food to perceive odor within the environment. And once these organisms multiply in their number, they colonize that area. First, we have inflammation around there, which leading to swelling around that mucosa, and which will mask ability to perceive smell. And it is even known that they are neurotropic, which means that this organism, they follows nerve to ascend. So they can follow the olfactory nerve and get to the brain, where they go and affect that part of the brain that is responsible for,
Doctor, what is olfactory and... I'm sorry, I just have to ask. Yes. The olfactory nerve you mentioned.
All right, that's the nerve that is responsible for smell in the nose.
Okay.
And the olfactory epithelium is the part of the skin in the nose that has those nerves, the sensitive, chemical detectors that will help you to perceive odor. And as we know, the sense of smell and taste, they go together. Anything you can smell, you can taste. So once this happens and this sense of smell is gone, in most people, taste will follow. And we know that 40 to up to 70% of individuals, whether they are symptomatic or asymptomatic, will present with this early sign. And some people, that will be the only thing that they will present with. And at the end of the day, the disease will circle out. You see, so if all of us were awake to this early warning sign, so that once you feel this loss of smell or taste or both, number one thing to do is to raise a red flag. You call NCDC, you self-quarantine or self-isolate yourself at home. You call their number, they will come and take sample, because it's one of those indicators for even sample taking and testing now as we're speaking. So it has been adopted. All
right, Doc, usually when I have a cold, a catarrh, as you call it, or flu, the onset, I notice that I may not even know it's coming.
Yes.
But I notice that I have a little bit of sensation around here, and then I begin to lose my sense of taste.
Yeah.
I'll be hungry, but my mouth does not want to eat.
Yeah.
So do I also, and I know each time I have flu, it always happens. Do I begin to call NCDC at that point?
That's an excellent question you have asked. But let me tell you something. Most of the upper respiratory tract infections, coronavirus is responsible for that. Coronavirus 1, about 50% of cases.
Coronavirus 1?
Yes.
It's not this one we have
Not this
now.
particular one.
Oh, really?
The previous strain that has been existing. So, loss of smell is usually, as there are other things that can also lead to loss of sense of smell and taste. But research has shown that if you have loss of sense of smell or taste, presently as we are speaking, that you have 10 times chance of this being coronavirus 2 rather than any other thing. So that is why putting 1 plus 1 together, in the time and event that we're living in, if you just develop this sense of smell and taste, it is a red flag that you get tested. But that does not mean that there are some other things that can lead to sense of smell and taste. But the likelihood is very, very high.
After all, when you get tested, we've tested more than 17,000, and we only have a little less than 3,000.
Absolutely.
So it means that even if it's not, you can always go home.
That's right.
All right, good to know. Somebody is asking here, related to what you just answered. He said, please, what could help to cure heart cough? We don't prescribe medicine here, but...
Yeah, we don't. But general principle, Well, the first thing first is you steam inhalation. Will be recommended any day, anytime. It gives some certain effect. So you do some steam inhalation, take your warm ferments, and you try as much as possible to reach out to your physician. That's just a simple advice.
Because
Professor
there are many
Felicia,
things that can cause cough.
Exactly.
So it's important to see a physician to know what is responsible.
Especially when it passes a certain number of weeks. Professor Felicia, somebody is asking you a question here pointedly. Says, what are the meals that can reduce the level of body insulin? I don't know what that means.
Body insulin. Well, there are risk factors to having diabetes, okay? And then because what I mentioned was about, dietary management. And I said that when you know that the chemical you require to handle everything you eat as a source of energy and nutrition is not there or is not sufficient, it makes sense to take a second look at the meals, themselves. Of course, if an individual has diabetes, we have one absolute rule, and that is that things that contain refined sugars or things that taste sweet, immediately you put them in the mouth, apart from fruits, that individual should not take them, because refined sugars are sugars in their most easily absorbable form. So the moment you swallow, it runs to the blood to spike blood sugar. So that's why we say no refined sugars.
So when you say refined sugar, is the cube sugar we have, mineral?
Things that taste sweet. That's why I didn't specifically say the sugar in the
No, some people will go to the label in the market and be looking for refined sugar on the packets.
No, anything that is tasting sweet has refined sugars, apart from fruits. Even fruits, yes, diabetes patients can take fruits, but we have exceptions also. And then it's not about, the type of food. It is about how much of it are you eating and with what are you combining. Are you getting me? Okay. So it's and then the issue of oil. There's a lot anyway to food and diabetes. So, and I don't think it's something we can
definitely
discuss.
I'm going back to Dr. Ibekwe. I'd like to know seriously, when you're eating and you swallow bone, they ask you to cough hard, to expel it. You do that sometimes, or sometimes they give you big ball of a bar. You swallow it, it pushes down. Now, if I inhale the coronavirus, COVID-19 this time around, and while it's still within this region, I don't know, maybe that's the nerve area you talked about, can I cough hard or sneeze hard to expel it? Or can I drink something hot, like tea, to, push it down my throat?
This is a situation where 1 + 1 may not give you 2. So don't cough hard anything, and that's why we also prescribe that everybody goes with face mask.
Okay.
Because you're even coughing hard is contaminating the environment and endangering others around you. So the thing there is, once you have it, it is there. But how you react to it is what matters, and how fast you're able to get across to the authorities. Their numbers are all there. That's why we're doing all this sensitization everywhere. So once you have things suggestive that you may have this virus, you reach out to NCDC as quickly as possible. It's tested. It may not be, because there are so many things that could lead to you having cough, and upper respiratory tract infections have not gone, even though we have COVID in our environment now, which is very prevalent. But that does not mean that you may not have other things that may lead to you having cough, coughing hard. But please don't use a bowl of but to push down bone. I don't recommend that. It may cause injury. Yes, the coughing hard, there are ways of doing it, what we call helmet maneuver. Somebody may go behind you and help to grab, the lower part of your rib through the back while you cough. It may help to expel it. Okay. But you try once, you try twice, it doesn't work. Please contact your doctor to avoid converting it to a serious emergency.
All right, in that area, I'd like to have your final words, your ear, nose, and throat. And as long as COVID-19 is concerned, in fact, almost all the coronavirus, it gets to your doorstep first. What beyond the mask do you think we should be doing to protect ourselves?
Yes, I think first and foremost is for us to have this in our consciousness all the time. Because anybody that is battle ready will hardly fall into a battle. okay, fall as a victim in a battle when you are well prepared. So if we have this in our subconscious, that this disease is real, it's not a myth, as some people are peddling, and we abide by all the rules and regulations as prescribed by NCDC regarding this, interpersonal hygiene, hand washing, you cannot do that more than enough. It's very important. Even if you don't have sanitizer, use your soap and water and wash your hand regularly. Maintain the social distancing, or whatever distancing you choose to call it, So, but the important thing is don't be too close. You look at us seated in the studio here, we gave some gap. So that's very important. If you don't have any business coming out, you stay indoors. Okay. So these are little signs and things that will help in ensuring that this is coped. And removing stigmatization on this disease is also very important. Anybody could be a victim, and if you're one of those who got infected, please report early. Once you are given the supportive therapy, the chances of survival is very, very high.
All right, thank you so much. And on a parting note too, Professor Felicia, I need you to speak on the role of sleep in this period, because I know it works hand in hand with it. Sleep.
Well, sleep, is very important. It's one of the things God has put in place to help our brain to relax, to get rid of all the toxins we've accumulated throughout the day, to help our body to relax. So it's very important that we have, good sleep. Also, I want to say that all those with, chronic diseases, diabetes, hypertension, and so on, they should take their medications, particularly those with diabetes. They should take their medications. They should check their blood sugars. If their blood sugars get very high and, they are worried about it, they should always, report to their doctor. It's very important that they keep up with their medications. Have a good stock with them so they don't run out of their medications at this period. Because if the control is poor, then it makes them now even more at risk of having COVID-19 infection.
All right, thank you so much, Professor Felicia Anuma, for coming, and Professor Titus Ibekwe for coming. I know I dragged you out of another program to come in here, but as always, you never cease to, show respect to Nigerians and, of course, show love to all of us. On my own part, I would say we have all been in this classroom together. We have all learned, and there is no end to what we can learn. But I want us to pick one thing. The lockdown may be easing out, but remember, your life is in your own hands. I don't say your health is in your hand. This time around, your life is in your own hands. Please wash that hand clean and ensure that you face the world, masked. I'll see you again some other time. It is Conversations on NTA. Bye.